1968. I surely do where I was. I knew where I was. I was actually a communications guy in the submarine force and Pacific Fleet, and happened to be in Hawaii at the time, off the boat, and I was sitting on before computers, there were like teletype machines. And there was like, you remember ticker tape parades? It was like, and so, I was a young 19-year-old kid, and I would receive messages, and I would send them out, and I would read everything, and I'd have to create a 2-hour broadcast to all the submarines because we were their only way they communicated was through me. And I would, wind up and send out the messages, and they were rated immediate to priority to routine to information news, and it was rated to familygrams, and I got to read everybody's mail before they got it. And some of it was like good news, some of it was not so good news, because a lot of the nuclear subs didn't surface. They were down for 6 months, and so just the way it was. But I remember I was working on, I was on a day shift that day, and it was, I knew things before the admiral, and I loved that. And I remember it came in the same day, and it was on my machine, my teletype machine. When I received it, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. And so that day was a real sad day for our nation, and yet at the same time, somehow God always works for good, and the opportunity that for other people to move forward into leadership. One of his talks that I listened to over the weekend was a talk given in 1967 called If Not. And I happened to hear this message also from Joel Osteen using the same Bible story. And when I hear something once and then I hear it again, I think now I need to talk about it. And it was basically the simple Bible story. All of you know it if you know anything about the Bible. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were teenagers, probably about the age of Martin Dr. King when he was starting out his movement or in his mind and getting ready to position himself to make a difference in the world. And it was basically a talk about these three were committed. The king, Nebuchadnezzar, was committed to making sure everybody worshiped the idol, the god, golden god. And these three guys said, I don't think so. Not going to happen. And so they bound him. And they put him in the fiery furnace. You know the story. And they went into the fiery furnace. And the only thing that dropped away were the ropes that bound them. The only thing to burn away. Because they knew that their God was greater. And they were in defiance of civil law. Because that particular civil law needed to be changed. And people have a higher consciousness. It was about their consciousness. It was not about the law down here, human law, but some human laws need to be changed. And so they were about that. They broke civil law, and they went in there, and it was like the talk was if not. And I couldn't figure out how if not came in, because they're going in if not, no matter what. If God saves them, that's what they believe. But they're going in knowing that no matter what, the Spirit of God was in them, regardless of the outcome. And they moved into that experience. And if not, what would have happened to them? Who knows? But they knew at some level that this was the thing to do. And this is where Dr. King was at. Was this place of going into a place of changing things. These are civil laws that at a higher state of consciousness were no longer should exist. And we're still doing it today. I mean, look at World War II, and look at Hitler, for instance. And Dr. King talked about that too. It was against the law to shelter the Jews during World War II. It was a German law created by Hitler himself, and yet so many people were defiant of that law, civil laws. And today, we're all about changing laws that aren't right. And there's some coming at us right now in the Supreme Court. I won't need to mention them. Just get on the news. And there's things coming that need to be changed because they don't fit the consciousness, because the planet is going to a higher state of consciousness. And those people who don't want to go to a higher state of consciousness will fight you for it. Because those are the people that it works for. But if it doesn't work for everyone, it shouldn't work for you. You see how it works? It needs to work for you, but if it's working for you and it doesn't work for you, then it's the wrong thing to do. I couldn't say that again if I tried. My Lord. What in the world am I talking about now? It's doing the right thing. And like he said, this guy was a prophet. He prophesied his own death. So did President John F. Kennedy, by the way. He prophesied his own death. He knew it was coming. He could see it. And so how do we, in a short period of time, how do I share with you basically what's important is your faith. Do you have a deep conviction of faith? You know, can you imagine yourself going to the mountaintop and then a willingness and to know that God is greater than any problem you find yourself on, a willingness then to move the mountain, whatever that mountain may be. It says in Scripture in Matthew, the words of Jesus, in the book of Gospel of Matthew, the 17th chapter, the 20th verse. If you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, you say to this mountain, move hence to yonder place, and it will be done. It will move, and nothing will be impossible to you. And Jesus was a great teacher, and he taught us to do that. If you say move with a sense of deep faith, it will move. And everything that you do in my name, it will move. But we have to get to the mountaintop to be on the move. And what that means is that you have to come to understand who you are. That we're all children of God. That each and every person on this planet is created in the image and after the likeness of God. And everybody is entitled to that awareness. And that is the awareness that we teach. You know, as a kid, sometimes you get fearful of certain things. And one of the things that I loved to go to as a young teenager, I wasn't even a teenager, I was probably like 10, 11. We used to love to go, my brother and I used to go see spooky movies. And I love spooky movies. And my favorite was Dracula. And in those days, Dracula was all black and white. You know, and let me tell you about the first time I saw a Dracula movie that was in color. That's over the top. And we lived in a little town in Sumner, Washington, small, typical little town, Main Street, and then the little streets, little corner theater, you know what I'm talking about if you're raised in a small town. And we were up on a Friday night. I was about 11, 12 years old, and I think it was Brides of Dracula. I don't remember for sure, but it was a colored vampire movie, and man, oh man, I was scared to death. But I knew that the thing that the vampires didn't like was this, right? Holy water and the cross, that's why I wear one. Some people like to suck the life force right out of you. So the movie is over, and we are walking down the street. And my brother was, at that time, very quiet, and I was kind of the spokesperson, even though he was 2 years older. And we started walking. Let me just stop you for a minute. And there was a car that pulled up alongside us. And I'd never seen the car. It was a 56 Ford Victoria. I'd never seen the car. But here's the deal. In the car is my uncle, in a new car. And in the car was my mother, who I hadn't seen in a year and a half because I was living with my father at the time. And my mother had a real bad cold, and she said to me, "You kids like a ride?" So we stepped it up. You know, it was a power walk. And what I noticed off to my side, my peripheral vision was the car was following us. And then my brother, we didn't say a word. We looked at each other in this very fearful place. And here's what we knew. We both knew this. We don't have to worry about getting home. See, there was a corner Presbyterian church, then the minister's manse, parsonage, and then next to that's where we lived on the right-hand side. We didn't worry about even getting home. We just had to get to the porch of the church because why? So we ran, and we snuggled up underneath together, him and I, holding each other under the porch of the Presbyterian church. You know the old churches with no parking lots. You know what I'm talking about? Street parking only. And the car was still coming and pulled up, and the door opened up. Now, when I saw it was my mother, I went from hell to heaven in about an instant. Because I knew that my mom was going to save me. I knew that all was well. Follow that? In that moment of fear, and whatever it is that you're taught, whether it's the bite of a vampire, whatever it is, there is a place that you can go to that you know is safe. Whether it's this, whatever it is for you, whether it's in your mother's arms as a child, It's really a recognition of that there is this divine presence. And it shows up as mother's love. It shows up as a personal relationship love with people, spouses, good friends. But it's a safe place. So what we want to do is we want to go to this safe place, because from that place we can then go higher, because then we can begin to build our faith in God, and we can begin to follow the teachings and the principles that Jesus taught. The faculty of faith is really a tremendous power to change conditions, basically by changing ourselves and making ourselves available to the God of our understanding. The prayer chaplains wear these beautiful 12-power things around their neck, these shawls. Is that what they call them? Shawls. And I have one. And so I said, every time I talk about a 12-power, I'm wearing it. So I'm going to talk about it just briefly. I don't have a lot of time, but I want to talk about this idea of the power of faith. Awaken, O sleeper, from Ephesians 5:14. Awaken, O sleeper, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall give you light. We have to have the faith. You have the faith that God is available? If so, say yes. 12 people. That's all Jesus had. If you have the faith to transform the world, say yes. And it's an inner knowing that comes to us. What we have to do is we have to wake up and not be hypnotized by the outer appearances. We need to strengthen our belief, and the focus is on God. You know, decisions need to be made. Things have to be said. But we need to focus on God. Take time. Stand down. Do nothing at all. Allow the presence of God to come in and through you. That great Jewish rabbi that walked with Rabbi Abraham, who walked with Dr. King at Selma, said, in a quote that I read, that his very feet were tingling with the presence of God. With every step that he took, his feet were tingling with the presence of God. Tingling with the presence of God. You have to quit being hypnotized by the outer world. Give yourself permission to believe in God. Give yourself permission to have faith as a grain of a mustard seed. Give yourself permission to grow. You know,